Have you ever wondered how people think or come up with amazing ideas? Ideas that shape the world we live in today, generate billions of dollars, and influence the way in which we function as a society. Well, if you haven't, in 15 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can. Growing up, we believe that there is one particular path to success. Study hard in school, get into a good university, land yourself a great job, and bingo, you'll be happy. Well, after struggling in school, I somehow managed to end up reading law here at Warwick. But fortunately, I didn't become a lawyer. I got a grad scheme at an energy company, and I came back here to the business school. And I had followed the magic formula. But I wasn't growing, and I certainly wasn't happy. So what went wrong? Well, much like me, Richard Branson also struggled in school. And when he dropped out at 16 to start his first business, his headmaster said he'd either end up in prison or become a millionaire. And I don't need to tell you the outcome of that one. Steven Spielberg is arguably one of the best directors of our time. And he's the brains behind E.T., Jurassic Park, and Indiana Jones. And despite being an amateur filmmaker growing up, he was also rejected from university. Now, both Steven and Richard could have played it safe. They could have conformed to getting a day job and listened to their teachers telling them that they wouldn't achieve anything or become anyone. They could have killed their creative dreams, but they chose to not conform. Now, many people don't know the exact definition of conformity, and neither did I before preparing for this talk. But to conform means to comply with a set of rules, standards, or laws, or behave accordingly to socially accepted conventions or standards. So in simple terms, this means we should fit in to a particular narrative and not be the odd one out. But as a millennial, I am part of this woke generation of people who want to be different, who want to stand out, and we can be, but within reason and within limits. 2 years ago, I started my podcast, A Millennial Mind. And in the beginning, I used to get 10, 12, maybe 50 views if I was lucky. And people weren't shy to point it out. Where are you even going with this? You know it's just a hobby. You won't make any money. Stick to your corporate role. That's safe, Shivani. So that's exactly what I did. For 2 years, I conformed, and I was suppressing my creativity every single day. Just like Payal Kakadia did when she worked as a consultant for 7 years, skipping meetings and running to class before she built her billion-dollar company, ClassPass. And my question here today is how many of you are doing that right now? How many of you are killing your creativity for conformity? Now, the fear of failure can often hold us back from trying new things and taking risks. And that's where conformity comes in, because it's much easier to follow the 9-to-5 blueprint that's instilled in us at school than to create a new path of our own. And I know doing something isn't easy. It's difficult, uncomfortable, and scary. But in order to grow and in order to progress, we must break free from one-dimensional thinking. Between season 1 and season 2 of my podcast, I took a 6-month break. 9 months between season 2 and season 3, because I was still conforming to the idea of what I should be. Despite the growth and interest in my podcast, I was still working on who I could be. A good girl, with a good job, saving for a nice house, to hopefully one day have, well, nice kids. But I was tired of limiting my creativity to the morning rush hour on the Met Line, my lunchtime walk whilst grabbing my meal deal, and the post-dinner slump. When I took a step back, I realized that I was giving up the best hours of my day during the best years of my life doing the worst thing that I could possibly do: waste my time. Now, John F. Kennedy said we must use time as a tool and not as a couch. And the reason I believe that so many of us don't value every single minute of our day is because time is free. But time is also priceless. You can use it, but you can't keep it. And once it's lost, you can never get it back. So here's the bad news. Time passes quickly, but we have the power, we have the control, and we have the choice in how we use it. Now, conformity isn't just limited to our personal lives. In organizations, one of the most striking examples of how conformity can have dire consequences is what happened in NASA in 1986, when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded shortly after takeoff. Now, several employees had raised concerns about the potential of this malfunction, but their warnings were ignored or dismissed by management. After the disaster, more and more people came forward to say that they knew that this was going to happen, but they were too afraid to challenge the status quo because they would be seen as troublemakers or penalized for their opinions. This disaster highlights the importance of encouraging open communication, embracing the diversity of ideas, and creating a culture that values differing opinions. Now, in large organizations, political agendas are inevitable. And in between these politics, we're unable to listen, embrace complexity, and the creative solutions found when tapping into the diversity of talent is lost. Now, we presume that roles define people, and we would conform to the expectations of this position, and everyone would respond in the same way if they were also given this title. In 1971, Philip Zimbardo conducted the Stanford prison experiment, where he randomly assigned participants to be either prisoners or guards. After just one day, we saw the guards being violent, aggressive, and abusive towards the prisoners. And despite them knowing that this was a simulation and an experiment, very quickly you saw the prisoners, after one day, when writing their letters home to their families, sign it with their prison number instead of their real name. So this experiment showed how easily we conform to certain behaviors where we're given a particular title. Now, in our roles today, we have to ask ourselves, are we being authentic or are we following protocol? Now, the word authenticity has been popularized over the last few years. And you can now find over 10,000 books on Amazon with several courses, workshops, and method teaching you how to be more authentic. But what does authenticity really mean? Authenticity means accepting who you are and knowing what you do well, and then having the courage and self-confidence to share that with the world. Sounds easy, right? But true to which self? Your old self, your current self, or your future self? We feel comfortable repeating the same actions over and over again and justifying our actions based on a learnt method rather than an explorative one which pushes us outside of our comfort zone. We cannot be creative if we refuse to never change, and we can never change if we are afraid to confront. Now, confrontation is something I speak about all the time in organizations because I believe it is the #1 tool to increase employee engagement, improve retention, and create a culture where people are valued. Now, confrontation is difficult. The world itself is scary, and it's the easiest thing to avoid. But I believe there's so much power in confronting a situation. I want everyone in this room to think back to a time when they've had a problem. Any problem. At home, at work, in any element of your life. How have you solved that problem? Has it been by avoiding it? Or has it been by confronting it? Now, the reason why so many of us are afraid to confront situations is because we're worried they'll turn into a debate. A debate is one person's perspective. It's an argument. And winning is the goal. Dialogue is where we understand each other. We find strengths in each other's perspectives. And finding common ground is the goal. So I've created a 5-step framework to ensure how you always have a dialogue instead of a debate. And compassion is at the heart of it. Compassion helps us to connect with each other. It helps us to be open and listen to the other person's perspective. The next point is care. Why do you care about this person, or this role, or this organization? The third is cause. What has caused you to raise this? The fourth is consider. Have you considered the other person's perspective? And the last is cure. What's the solution? So let's rewind a little bit to the NASA example and see how an employee could have used this framework to confront the situation with their manager. So as I said, compassion is entwined within every single step. So let's start with the first step, care. Here the employee could have stated that they really care about working in the organization. They enjoy their role, and they care about the long-term success and reputation of the company. The second is cause. The reason they're raising this is because of the care points. They care about the long-term success of this company, and they know that it will be damaged if they don't speak up. Third, consider. Now, this is the hardest point, because when we're in an argument, when we're facing any discussion, we believe that only we have the right answers, and we're not open to another perspective. So here the employee could have considered the financial impacts, the strategic impacts, and all of the other reasons as to why they couldn't delay the project. The last step is cure. Often, when someone presents us with a problem, we believe that only they should have the solution and that they should have all of the answers. But in this case, the reason why there's so many people that work at one company is because we need all of their strengths. Not one person can have the answer to the problem. And here, the engineer could have used his technical skills, and the management could have used their financial or strategic outlook to come up with a solution that is win-win, where they can work together. Now, despite this framework, many of you will still probably find it difficult to raise a confrontation. And your friends, your colleagues, or your family will probably tell you to leave it and let it go. And other people's opinions can be a really strong factor in our decision-making. And blocking out the noise can be extremely difficult, whether that's the little voice inside your head or the even larger voices from outside. Has anyone ever heard of Jamie Siminoff? Well, he designed the world's first smart doorbell Ring, which I'm sure many of you have installed outside of your home. When he presented his idea on Shark Tank, all of the sharks rejected him and said that they didn't believe in the potential for his company to reach 80 or 90 million. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard or seen Meryl Streep, but when she was 27, she was completely unknown, and she was rejected from several roles in Hollywood because she wasn't deemed to be beautiful enough. Now, both Jamie and Meryl didn't listen to everyone telling them that they weren't good enough. Jamie didn't give up on his idea, he worked on it. And Meryl didn't run away from Hollywood, she faced it. 5 years after appearing on Shark Tank, Jamie sold Ring to Amazon for $1 billion, and he now sits as a judge on that same panel that rejected him. And Meryl, well, she has so many awards and nominations, I couldn't even remember half of them for this talk. My point is, they both remained authentic. They both remained persistent. And they both didn't conform to what everyone else was telling them. We are all trying to find a blueprint that we are told we fit into, because it's easier to follow a path than create one for ourselves. It's why I believe so many people online are chasing virality instead of adding value. Now, we are part of this influencer era where we're trying to copy others and fit in with a narrative that is likable, simple, and comfortable. And we're all trying to imitate the latest celebrity or fit in with the newest trend. It's why surgical procedures have increased by 54% in just the last year. But if we want to truly be authentic, we need to learn to take the time out to find our why, our purpose, and our reason for being here on this planet. I believe that every single person in this room has their own unique talent and strength. We just perhaps don't know them yet. Like I said earlier, we have the power to listen to the voice we listen to. And I chose to listen to the one that believed that I could do it. So I set my goals, I created a plan, and I quit my job. And I continued to push out my podcasts, breaking down different stereotypes and challenging taboos, which often labeled me as outspoken, asking for trouble, and difficult. But this outspoken, difficult girl decided to confront the roadmap that society had laid out for her. And as I stand here today, leaving my safe salary behind, I can tell you that I chose to no longer conform. In a world today where we're able to be anyone, why are we trying so hard to not be ourselves? We only have one life, so why would we trade our authenticity for approval? I believe everyone has the power to unlock their creative mind and to leave a legacy behind. You don't need to sit on a beach like Steve Jobs and take acid, or participate in an ayahuasca ceremony to create a vision. You just need to stop conforming, start confronting, and stop killing your creativity. Thank you.